And you talk about black women. Hey, we haven't had it this bad in a long, long time.
So I'm thinking about her and about the generations of women, black women, history have paved the way for this moment tonight.
Hello, good evening, everyone. Hi, welcome. I'm so glad that you have been able to join us. Happy Wednesday. It is Wednesday and you've made it. You've made it to the end of your day. And not only have you made it to the end of your day, you've made it here, right where you're supposed to be. My name is Shannon Stott and welcome. I am your host. Welcome to the Fierce Vulnerability Summit. This is a conversation about and a celebration of colored girls' truths, trials, and triumphs. Tonight, we explore what it means to be fiercely vulnerable in marriage. Now, this is the thing about what you are going to see. These wonderful people are not just couples. They're working couples. And I'm not saying they're actually working as jobs and whatnot. That is true. But you're going to see people who have their children, people who are coming from all different walks of life, people who are coming from all different backgrounds. They are working right in front of you. So we get to be involved in their lives. Please be sure that if you have questions for what that means to be a working couple, to be a couple that is working fiercely vulnerability with fierce vulnerability, that you ask those questions in the comments and they will be so happy to assist, so happy to answer them. Sophia Casey, who we are here celebrating, has written a book about the strength of Black women and how their relationships support and shape them. Tonight, we get to discuss the relationship of marriage and what it means to be fiercely vulnerable within it. Tonight, Sophia Casey, a professional certified coach through the International Coach Federation, the director of First Impressions, a task force for a former vice president of the United States, and author of the book We Are Gathered to Celebrate, brings together a panel of unique partnerships, all of which have had to endure incredible vulnerability in order to succeed. Sophia has served for more than 30 years as an agent of change for followers around the world, being featured in Success Magazine, on Fox News, and Sirius XM Radio. Her accomplishments only come with firsthand experience of being truly vulnerable in her own friendships, work relationships, and partnership. Please welcome Sophia Casey.
Well, hello. Long time no see.
I love you, Sophia.
I love you too, Shannon. I'm so grateful for you. I'm so grateful for this team. I'm so grateful for all these amazing panelists that you get to hear this evening. And I know I say this every single month, every single panel discussion. I say, oh my gosh, this is the conversation that we need to have. This is the important conversation. So I'm saying it again. This is the conversation that we absolutely need to have. This is the important conversation. I've been so privileged to hear from a lot of you around bringing fierce vulnerability in marriage and what fierce vulnerability looks like already in your marriage and what fierce vulnerability has looked like in your marriage or previous relationships. And so I'm looking forward to this conversation. But I want to first start with to honor my hubby and my relationship with him. I want to share with you one of my favorite poems So I'm switching it up a little bit. Want to share one of my favorite poems that I actually, I'm sorry, I'm laughing because whew, I tell you, when we met, it was quite interesting. A lot of, how do I say it? Combustion. A lot of combustion, so much combustion. We met and married after knowing each other for 70 days. Yes, you heard me, 70. And we will be celebrating 13 years of marriage really soon. So this is a poem that I used to, that I fell in love with in college. And so when I met Casey, as we call him, I would read this to him quite often. And let's just say it made for a good date night. All right, so this is one of my favorite poems. It is called Resignation, and it's by my incredible soror, the famous poet Nikki Giovanni. Resignation. I love you. I love you because the earth turns round the sun, because the north wind blows north sometimes, because the Pope is Catholic and most rabbis Jewish, because the winters flow into springs and the air clears after a storm, because only my love for you, despite the charms of gravity, keeps me from falling off this earth into another dimension. I love you because it is the natural order of things. I love you like the habit I picked up in college of sleeping through lectures or saying, I'm sorry, when I get stopped for speeding because I drink a glass of water in the morning and chain smoke cigarettes all through the day because I take my coffee black and my milk with chocolate. Because you keep my feet warm, though my life a mess. I love you. I love you because I don't want it any other way. I am helpless in my love for you. It makes me so happy to hear you call my name. I'm interjecting this part, as you did on that 4th of July. Solfae! It makes me so happy to hear you call my name. I am amazed you can resist locking me in an echo chamber where your voice reverberates through the 4 walls, sending me into spasmodic ecstasy. I love you. I love you because it's been so good for so long that if I didn't love you, I'd have to be born again. And that is not a theological statement. I am pitiful in my love for you. The Dells tell me love is so simple. The thought, though, of you sends indescribably delicious, multitudinous thrills throughout and through in my body. I love you. I love you because no 2 snowflakes are alike, and it is possible if you stand tippy-toe to walk between the raindrops. I love you because I'm afraid of the dark and can't sleep in the light, because I rub my eyes when I wake up in the morning and I find you there. Because you, with all your magic powers, were determined that I should love you. Because there was nothing for you, but that I would love you. I love you because you made me want to love you more than I love my privacy, my freedom, my commitments, and responsibilities. I love you because I changed my life to love you. Because you saw me one Friday afternoon and decided that I would love you. I love you. I love you. I love you.
Thank you, Sophia. You're getting us off on the right foot. I know. I don't just, you can cry all you want. How about that? You can, all the feels, all the feels. Friends and family, listen, it's not only Sophia. Sophia, we could listen to all day, talk about her relationship and the relationships that she has written about. But we have some amazing partners who are here to also share in this conversation. Danielle and Cole Monroe started their relationship as high school sweethearts in New York as 2 teenage girls. When coming out to their parents created an avalanche of adversity, they would eventually split only to return to love love 7 years later. Since then, they have each opened up their own small business, had COVID elopements, and as a replacement for their long-awaited 3-day wedding. And Cole came out as transgender. Danielle and Cole are passionate about sharing their story with families of all kinds in hopes to help humans dismiss the confinement of labels and lead with love. Please welcome Danielle and Cole. Welcome, Danielle and Cole.
Hi, thank you so much. So excited to be here and have this conversation.
Yes, we are excited to have you. We are very much excited. We also have Shy. Mallory is a Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I know what PA means. Pennsylvania native, and currently lives in Bowie, Maryland, with her fiance, AJ. In 2019, Sade had an unexpected turn in her life journey when she was diagnosed with the autoimmune disease lupus. Over the years, Sade has struggled to find her purpose until she realized her diagnosis had a greater purpose. In January 2021, Sade created Had Her Autoimmune Discussion, a public platform to highlight conversations regarding women, specifically women of color, and autoimmune diseases. Since starting her platform on Instagram, Sade has learned from, advocated for, and connected with amazing groups of people and fellow autoimmune warriors. Please welcome Sade and AJ.
Hello.
Hi, friends. How are you?
We're good.
Good.
Welcome. We still have some more to go. We have Trinette Collier-Green is a certified relationship coach and has coined the title Inspirationalist. It is through her advocacy and celebration of life that her gifts and talents have manifested. Trinette is a native of Los Angeles, California, but is now a Georgia peach who loves her family, dancing, and her husband, Chef Green. Chef Greenie is a graduate of Le Cordon Bleu Culinary Institute and now owns and operates Jolly Green Foods. Welcome, Trinette.
Hi.
Hello. Hello, Chef. Welcome. We said it. I said it at the very beginning. We have working couples. We have to do the things to make it work, right? Right. So we're glad to have you glad to have all of you for as long as we can have you, when we can have you. We also have Brett Washington, is currently Director of Engineering at Cvent Inc., an event management software company located in Northern Virginia. In addition to building cool things, he loves mentoring and guiding the careers of software engineers and has been spreading the development of Cvent's first engineering apprenticeship program. Rebecca is a graduate of Johns Hopkins University and a licensed therapist. She currently is part of an emergency and crisis team in Northern Virginia. Brett and Rebecca have been together for 20 years and been married for 18. They have 3 children. Please welcome Brett and Rebecca.
Hey, everybody.
Hi, it is good to see you. We're glad to have you.
Yeah.
We also have Colin and Michelle, a humble servant of the Lord. Colin Frazier is owner of spreadyourministry.com, where he designs websites and apps. Colin also serves in prison ministries with 3 jails in Maryland. Also owner Inspiration 360 Radio, where he goes by the name of Colin, the Kingdom Consultant, with the purpose to speak to the heart and souls of his listeners worldwide. Please welcome Colin and Michelle. Hello.
Hi. You can tell my husband sent all that in and didn't say anything about his wife.
And listen, You see, what did I say at the beginning of this? Working couples. We're working on it. All right. We're working on it right now. We also have Candace Cox, and Candace will be joining us later in the program. And when they arrive, I will be sure to introduce them. All right. My goodness, I am so there they are. Candace Cox is passionate about meeting individuals where they are to assist them with getting to where they want to be in life. For this reason, she implemented her Organized Chaos TMTM program in schools and community centers to address the lack of social and emotional coping skills being taught both at home and educational environments. After realizing the importance of addressing toxic and traumatic stress on all levels, Candace expanded her reach to include first responders and corporate mental health in 2015. Please welcome Candace. Hi, Candace. How are you? You're good.
I'm muted. Hello, everybody.
No. Hello. All right, we are here. Before we get started completely, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to ask, because this is a giant conversation, it's a giant conversation. I want to know, one, Sophia, would you like to read for us?
Look, I'm trying to multitask. My husband is on with me via FaceTime. Thank God for technology.
Yeah.
All that he's gone through, we can still be connected through technology. So yes, sure. Yes, I will read something.
I would love that. We would all love that.
Awesome. All right. This is from my book, Fierce Vulnerability, A Color Girl's Truths, Trials, and Triumphs. Can we talk about some triumphs? Yes, we can. And this is from Vanessa, the character Vanessa's voice. My eyes adjust to the bright morning light. I awake alone in my bed, although the empty space beside me remembers my husband's body heat. I roll over into the warm patch where he slept, feeling the sensation on my breast. I soak up every last drop, the rare evidence I could scrape up these days that I was indeed sharing my life with someone. Stretching, I survey the view from the newly installed French windows. I take in the morning softness of the gated community with its rolling hills and designer cars. Soon enough, I find my eyes have refocused, and all I can see is the sun glinting on the hard water spots of the window. I can see Michael's car is still in the driveway. Quickly, I put my hair up, I throw on a robe and hurry downstairs, hoping to catch him on his way to work. I find him already finishing his morning coffee. Seeing me, he laughs into his cell, wrapping up with whomever he's been speaking to at this early hour. Hi, baby. He delivers a swift kiss to my cheek. I smile an automatic smile. Who was that? I ask, trying my best not to let my tone betray the negative feelings heating up within me. He studies me as he sips his coffee. I was just catching up with Marlon. We're thinking about taking a little fishing trip out on the lake with a few buddies for his birthday next month. Wow. Marlon? As in Ava's ex, Marlon? He quickly finishes his cup. Yep. He's working in my wing now. Over the past few months, we've become friendly, I guess. Michael tosses his cup in the dishwasher and briskly kisses my cheek before waving himself out the door. I watch his car take off down the driveway, for once thankful to hear the kids waking up upstairs.
Excellent job. Excellent. You did it. All right. You've started us off. All right. You've started us off down a path. We're going to put what we just heard in our minds, let it wash over us. I'm going to challenge all of you to a small game. If you are in the chat, if you are watching with us, what I need from you, and if your partner is not on screen with you here, you are also going to join people in the chat, and you're also going to talk about this. But I want you, for those of you who are in partnership, I am challenging you. I'll give you 30 seconds. I want you to tell your partner you love them without speaking and without touching them. Tell your partner you love them without speaking and without touching them. You can move You can move around, you can do whatever it is that you want, but in a way that you would do it. How would you tell your partner you love them without speaking and without touching them? If your partner isn't with you, talk about it. And if you are in the chat, tell us in the chat how you might tell your partner you love them without saying I love you and without touching them. What might you do? I am Sophia. I saw yours. I'm seeing lots of people. Good.
Yeah.
All right. Cole and Danielle. Good. Yes. Good. People throwing up gang signs. I love it. This is so good. Good. People sticking out their tongues at each other. This is good. Candace, what about you? How might you tell your partner you love them without touching them or telling them with your voice? Yes, good. Excellent. I'm wondering, I'm not seeing anything in the chat yet. I don't know what I would do. I would probably maybe get them a glass of water. Oh, communicate with my eyes. Good, Shamika. Yes, communicate with my eyes. Lots of batting. Blow him a kiss. Yes, I love this. Yes, we're coming up with some really good ones. Okay, so Sophia, are you still around? Because I have a question for you.
I am
there. There is a spot in the poem that you read. It said, "I love you because I changed my life to love you." Can you find that? Is that a direct quote? Did I say that right?
You got it right. Because I changed my life. Yes, that's what it says.
Great. I love you because I changed my life to love you. I want to go ahead and open up just the floor to everyone. Can you share a little bit about how you changed your life to love your partner and what that looked like and what it felt like? And is there anything else I want to add on to that? No, that was it. How did you change your life to love your partner? How are you continuing to change your life to love your partner? What does it look like? And I'm just going to throw it out there. Carl and Trinette, just because you're in the middle of my screen, just to get this conversation started, let's do it.
Oh, wow. Hey, everyone. Can you repeat the question?
How did you change your life to love your partner? What did it look like?
Oh, our lives have been constantly changing since we got married. We'll be celebrating our 4th year next month, and it's been constantly changing. And I think with our changes, the major change started with my mom's death, like 3 weeks after we got married. So that was a major change that I had to endure, and I had to also invite him into my world, and literally had to, I kind of gave him permission to say, if you can't handle this road, if you don't want to go down this road with me, it's okay for you to leave, because I don't know who I am anymore. I'm not the girl that you dated before this. So that was like the change, and to pretty much just say, I love you, but also love you a lot more for you to be happy as well. So that was like our change.
Oh, this is two-parter. How did I change my life? I just decided.
I already saw it. I saw. Go ahead.
She was the right woman for me, and kind of like stop dealing with the outside world. I just made it. I'm trying to make it all about her. Like I just love the smile, so I just want to see her smiling and happy.
Oh, your brownie points.
I would say for me, it was a matter of making space, literally and figuratively, for him. So like space in the closet, because at first we were in my little condo and, had to find somewhere for him to be, or space in my head, if I'm out and I'm at a restaurant, to think to bring him something back, like little things, making space. And then I guess in a deeper sense of it, making space by cutting other people out of my life. And one of the things we always talk about is sometimes you block your blessing when you don't make space for somebody in your life. And literally, I made some space about 3 weeks before I met him. and I feel like it was a divine intervention, because once I made that space and had room to love, then, you know, I was able to do that. So I'd say space is the theme throughout mine.
Yeah, Michelle, can you just talk a little bit, go a little bit deeper on this idea of blocking your blessing if you don't make space?
So specifically for like the situationship I was in before I met him, I was seeing this guy who, you know, said all the right things, had all the right credentials on paper, but in practice wasn't doing the things that somebody should do if they're, you know, headed down a marriage path. You know, there were whole entire parts of his life I knew nothing about, friends I didn't know about, parents I didn't meet. And, you know, he was from the States, so it's not like it's a big deal for that to happen. And likewise, he didn't kind of make room for me in his life by meeting my people as I would have wanted him to. And, you know, that went on for maybe 1.5 years or 2 years. It was a long time to kind of waste your time. And I just finally had this final straw moment where, you know, I said, if this doesn't happen, then I'm done. It didn't happen. And I had to cut it off, even without any prospects in sight. I just said, you know what, my time is valuable. And so I think sometimes, you know, I don't know what would have happened the couple weeks later if I had met him. I wouldn't have been in that mind space to say, hey, this is somebody who could be something to me. So yeah, it's necessary to cut some of the things that don't serve you out of your life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anyone else on that one? On just jumping on? Yeah.
Yeah, I think I have one. I think the biggest change that I made is I had to learn how to be a partner instead of just someone who's dating someone. I had to learn how to open up and talk about the things that I was feeling moody about, you know, and make space for the things that she was feeling moody about. Mm-hmm. You know, I had been in relationships where it was a lot of, we were kind of doing our own thing together. One of us was bringing the other one down in some way. So with Danielle, I knew that I wanted to be able for both of us to uplift each other. So I just had to relearn how to, or actually just learn for the first time how to be an actual partner. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It took a lot of deep conversations.
Yeah. I mean, yes.
Oh, and when I think about changing like who you are to be a better partner, I had a lot of identity crisis because Cole went through, as you can see in our bio, Cole transitioned, and at one point in my life I had identified as lesbian, and I thought that I wouldn't be with a man, and I had these, you know, preconceived notions of what it was going to look like. And I really had to just shed my ego a little bit and just step aside, let that ego take the back seat so that I could just be a present partner and be open to just loving him for who he is and not like, you know, what he does or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're talking about, you said being a present partner. So there's a change, a shift that happened in your relationship. And I'm sure everyone here, no one here has ever experienced shift. Everyone's partner has stayed exactly the same as they were when they met. I'm sure I'm getting a lot of like, is Shannon crazy? No, I'm not crazy. I'm just being sarcastic. So obviously there has been shift. Can we open up a little bit about what has been the biggest shift in some of your relationships? And then also, Candace, in this discussion, there is space for having a shift within self, right? Having a shift within self, being married to self. And I'd love to hear your perspective on that as we are talking about shift. What is the shift in your relationships? How have you dealt with shift? I'm looking at Brett and Becca. I'm looking at you. I knew you knew it.
Well, I mean, I think for us, we're two very different personalities in our relationship. I'm very, very introverted by default. Beck tends to be a lot more extroverted. If you know anything about introverts, we tend to draw our energy from solitude. But Beck, she draws her energy from being amongst people. I think one thing that was hard earlier in our marriage was I would sort of disappear for several days and not really talk, not open up about things, and but that would really hurt her. She didn't understand it, and it took us several years, I think, to get some alignment there. But she understands me a lot better as an introvert who needs a little me time. But I've also learned to reduce the amount of time that I need so that I can be here for her and the family.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you want to add to that.
So I would say to your last question, before we started, I was a free bird, and I would work to travel. I worked so I could travel and just up and leave. And we started talking when I was backpacking through Europe. And we're talking all the time, and I just thought, I have to go home. I have to meet this guy. I need to try this. And I kind of traded in my backpack for stability and for love. I've never been in love before. He was my first love. And it's like, that's a whole new adventure, staying still and sitting with someone else and still having autonomy and still being me, but sharing those adventures and doing different things with someone else. So that was really big for me. Mm. And I didn't give up a piece of myself. I just learned how to share that with someone else. So that was a big change.
Yeah.
Well, I truly experienced a shift. A shift with my husband's medical things, which I'll talk about a little later. But it was a huge shift for me because I had no desire to get married. Zero. So I wasn't that, little girl who would dream about the wedding dress and the beautiful wedding and all that stuff. And I think a lot of that comes from, and Candace probably could weigh in on this and support me around this with some counseling. But I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that my mother was married 5 times. And her sister, my aunt, was married 7 times. And so my relationship to marriage was like, why would I do that? And I remember being told as a young person, oh, that guy doesn't work out. It's okay. They're just like buses. Another one's coming. So that was like my relationship to relationships, that it was temporary. And so to me, my husband, Casey, and literally just being turned upside down and marrying him after knowing him for 2 months, I just did not make any sense whatsoever. And I really do believe it was a divine intervention. It was literally divine and spiritual intervention, because it's not something that I set out to do. I'm grateful to God for it, but it's not something I set out to do. So I literally had to shift my entire life and my view of marriage and what that meant. I had to redefine it for myself because it had been defined for me by so many people. So
I'm wondering, I want to take that and turn it on its head, right? So there was this space where you said you never believed, or you never thought that you would get married. That was not a thing. And then on the other side of that, but you did. And then on the other side of that, Candace, I'm assuming you didn't think that you were going to get divorced, and then you did. You know, and then, so what was that shift like? And just, yeah, let's talk about that a little bit.
There we go.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the shift into going into divorce, like I was married for 13 years. We were together for 17 years. He was my high school sweetheart, my first love. And the idea of us building a family, having children, and now being divorced almost 2 years, living life separately, you know, that was a total shift for me. I mean, it's still a shift. I'm still learning how to level out from all of that. But one of the biggest things that I have to recognize is that as we love each other. We love each other still. We'll love each other until the day we leave this world. But we grew in two different directions. And because we grew in two different directions, I went on we were two traumatized kids. So our bond was a trauma bond, just being realistic and being honest. We were raised by two single broken parents, and we were broken children as a result of that. And we had never seen a successful relationship. We had never seen a successful marriage. And so a lot of the patterns that were created as a result of what we saw growing up, as I'm a therapist. And so as I started recognizing, I was like, oh, whoa, that's not right. You know, hey, we got to do things different. So I started unlearning things that I was taught was right, and started relearning new ways of doing things. And that's when that shift happened, because as I started growing and changing and healing, I was different to him, and he wasn't ready to make those changes. And so as we continued, he continued to do a lot of the things that were done, and I wasn't comfortable in those things anymore. And so it got to a point where, it was just being honest. You know, I love you and you love me, but I'm no longer interested in the level of life that you have to offer me or yourself. And so I have to choose something different. If you don't choose anything different, I have to, because either we're going to grow together or we're going to grow apart, but we're going to grow.
Yes, I see Shy. I see you. I see you being affected. Jump in on.
No, that was deep. No, that takes a lot to do, because I've seen people stay together because the love is still there, you know, but it's so hard to dig deeper knowing that, okay, we're not doing it right. This is dysfunctional. How do we operate not in dysfunction? And then what do you do if one person is willing to not operate in dysfunction and the other person is still there? That is hard to leave. Like, it's easier to leave when you guys both hate each other, but when the love is still there and you still know that you have to go because you want something better, like, that's hard to do. So I just felt that. I commend you for that.
Well, thank you. And it's having children, and, you know, we have a son and we have a daughter, and sitting back, you know, when you have children and you look at your daughter and your son and you're like, you know, is their father a man that I would want my son to be? Is their mother a woman that I would want my daughter to be, and vice versa? And the reality of the situation is I don't want my son to be like his father as he is right now. I don't want my daughter to marry a man like their father as he is right now. He has the ability to be an amazing man, but if he doesn't have the want to reach his potential, I can't reach it for him. But I also can't teach my children that you stay loyal, or you have this toxic loyalty just because of the role that a person plays in your life. That's not
Amen.
I'm wondering for all of us, what dysfunction was in or has been in your relationship that you have overcome, that you had to change yourself to overcome? Because what I'm hearing, Candace, and check me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like there was dysfunction and your partner was not willing to shift in order to overcome that dysfunction. And I'm wondering, what is it in in y'all's, in everyone here on the screen, has there been dysfunction? Because we all go through it. Has there been? Sophia, not a one. We just closed the door on dysfunction. We are like, no dysfunction here. What I wonder has been the dysfunction in your relationship, and what did you have to shift in order to get over that?
I can start with that for me. So I consider myself someone who was able to acknowledge and recognize my daddy issues. So one of the things that was the thing that would go on with our relationship is every time my dad would get mad, he wouldn't speak to me for days. You wouldn't even know what was wrong, or he would just, walk away. Like that's how he operated, right? So growing up, I knew it hurt my feelings, but as I started realizing, like as I got into relationships, every time I would get mad, I would always go to the extreme. Not that, like, it was never, you know what, I'm mad, let me just cool down and go into the other room. It was, oh, I'm done. It was always the extreme. So with AJ, and I'm still working on, when I get upset, sometimes I get into my moods where I just don't talk. And I know it's something that used to bother me, and I find myself doing it. But even as we were in a relationship, especially at the beginning of the relationship, when we had an argument or something like that, my first go-to was just to be done. And there was, in my mind, it just wasn't, it was like, listen, he has 5 seconds to talk. If he doesn't, I'm out, And then I had to start realizing, like, well, I don't really want to leave, I don't want to go. So then I had to kind of change my mindset, like, okay, you need to do something. You need to do something different. And that's, as I started learning more about my daddy issues, I started connecting how those issues were showing up in my relationship. So that's one of the ones. Yeah.
Yeah, I think y'all get deep, man. I didn't know if I was gonna go here or not tonight, but I'm just gonna go ahead and uncork it. So I think for anybody getting into a relationship, you need to sort of understand what baggage you're bringing in. I know for me personally, I didn't really understand some of the baggage I was bringing into our relationship, our marriage. I won't go into all the details, but in 2008, I was diagnosed with PTSD, and that contributed to kind of hearing Shai talk about how she dealt with arguments and things like that. I didn't deal with conflict very well at all. I would kind of go off the deep end, not realizing that some of that trauma in my past was contributing to it, and it affected our marriage very early on. I made the decision to go into therapy, which is not something that is it's not a thing that we do in our community. So I was, a little nervous about it, but now I'm a huge advocate for it because it certainly helped me overcome personal things that were, that I was dealing with, and then ultimately, helped our relationship to blossom. So
I've got a friend standing here in the wings. Came to say hello. This is my husband. He is here.
Hi, everyone. Hi. Oh, I love all those hand waves. Look at that. We got this virtual thing down.
Guys, we are talking about challenges or things, dysfunction that we have had in relationships, and how we have come over them, what we've had to do to change.
Man, okay. Just gonna throw me on the spot like that, huh?
I mean, all right, you're here. Cool. You stepped in here.
Oh, yeah, that's my fault.
People are getting deep. Might as well.
No, actually, I came in at a good time. I don't know who just spoke. Raise your hand. Who just spoke? Brett. Hey, Brett. It's nice to meet you, brother. All right. Hey, so listen. So I just overheard the last part of your conversation, but recently I went through the same thing. I know, obviously, 2020 was rough. I think everybody got thrown into some challenges that we didn't expect to get thrown into. For Shannon and I, I used to be on tour and out of the house about 240 days a year. So Shannon had basically two lives. She had the life when I was home, and then she had the life most of the year when I was gone, and we had to communicate by the phone. And so when I was home for this whole pandemic time, I ended up having to go to. I thought I had a heart attack. I for real thought I had a heart attack. I went to. She took me to the emergency room, and turns out it was a panic attack. And it was actually one of the. I don't go to the doctor. Like I know I'm not the only one on this panel, but like I don't like going to the doctor. I don't like needles. I don't like I don't even like being sick. And so it was really good for me though, because I went in and they were like, "Hey man, that's a panic attack. That's what you had." And Shannon and I were able after that to look at all of the dysfunction and problems that we had gone through, communication wise, just in our own marriage over the last few months, and work it all the way back and just say, hey, okay, well, there's a reason. There's a reason behind all that stress and stuff like that. So, I mean, it was a big step. It was a hard step. Brett, I applaud you, because I know that is not an easy thing to deal with. But yeah, that it really did help.
Yeah, it did. He's right. He's still in this house.
That's true.
I love you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks for saying hello.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm off to go pick up our kid.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
All right.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you so much. Thanks for all your support. All right.
Gus Davis, everybody. All right. So yes, we all experience our challenges. Brett, thank you very much for sharing that. Who else? Yes, Cole.
So I personally came into the relationship with a lot of past relationship trauma. So I know I came in with, I had gotten out of a relationship and didn't have time to heal from what had gone down in that relationship when Danielle and I got back together after that 7-year break. So I came in with a lot of trust issues on top of all of this. Was before coming out as transgender. So this is on top of all of that internal noise. I came in with trust issues, with thinking people were going to steal from me. Like I just had to really go through it. And just like Brett, I had to just go to therapy. It got to a breaking point with us where she was just like, what are we doing here? What are we doing?
Yeah, we were getting extremely distant. Mm-hmm. And from our story, we had split up for 7 years and gotten back together, moved from New York to Charlotte in a pretty quick time. And it felt like everything was just crumbling apart. And we were having a lot of trouble. We weren't communicating. I felt miserable. I was so out of my element. I didn't know anybody. And we had to really have like a come to Jesus moment where it was like, we need therapy. And Cole started going to therapy, and that was just a huge game changer for us in our relationship. And I had to go to therapy as well. And I recognized that my baggage that I really came with is I started to just always make something my fault. I really can feel energy, and Cole is a moody person. He's always been a moody person, although he's really smiley and happy now, but he was, as you can imagine, not feeling like yourself. You are moody and you go through things. And every time he was going through something, I internalized it and I made it my fault. And then from that, I just became really needy, and I needed reassurance, but he wasn't in a space to do that for me. And I really needed to do that for myself. And I had to learn that the hard way. And now it's natural to try to check myself first before you wreck yourself, right? So that was really helpful for us.
Check yourself before you wreck yourself. That is 2021. Excellent. So one of the things I want to stay sort of on this path. We are talking about our relationships, right? This is how it works in my or our relationship. For those people who are watching, I wonder, it's hard to give advice, but if we can start talking about the things that if we can start speaking through the lens of this is what works for us, right? This is what works for me. It could work for you. It's not advice that I'm giving, but it could work for you as we're continuing with this conversation. And to put a little on that, I'm wondering, Danielle and Brett and Becca and anyone who hasn't spoken yet, for people who are watching and they're wondering, well, it's obviously not my fault. You need therapy, or like you have to go get fixed. It's you, obviously. And both people could be thinking that. How would you advise them, or what was the thing that happened for you that you realized, I am a part of this. I have to do work as well.
So I'll say, and this isn't about this relationship specifically, but another familial relationship. So recently I decided to start going to therapy. It's something I had thought about for a while, and it's not that there's anything like wrong per se, which is why I never did it, but definitely with this pandemic, I think a lot of people can say like something's just not right. Like I'm doing okay, but I'm not like thriving. And so it was partially that reason that I decided to start. And the other relationship, which I'm not gonna bring up too many details since the person isn't here, but for me, it was the realization that yes, I think that person needs to go to therapy, but I should go so I can figure out my reaction, because that's all you can control. I can't control what somebody else does. I can control my reaction to it. I don't like how I'm reacting in this relationship. I don't like how this relationship is making me feel. I don't like, who I think it's making me. And so what can I do? How can I get tools to deal with that so that we can do something healthy, so that I can be more productive, because it's not a relationship that I want to dismiss. Sometimes, like I said, I'm all for making space. Sometimes you need to, cut ties, make space, but sometimes you just can't for various reasons. It's family, you've been friends since like kindergarten, whatever the case, or it's your marriage. And so if you can't make the other person go, you can work on yourself, and maybe in whatever improvements you make, they'll be inspired to also take their own journey.
And then I guess, can I talk on our relationship with just one piece of advice I know you had asked? I think it's just being honest. I think from day one, when we met each other, I think we were like brutally, well, I was brutally honest, you know what I'm saying? Just because I think, I feel, we wasn't checking for one another, right? And then even now, I feel like, it's like, what do we have to lose? And what helped me gain more love for her was I became more intimate with Christ, right? So I needed to be able to say, well, I could say any and everything to this woman and I'd be okay with it, right? Just because, I left it in God's hand and I left it in her hands. Like after the first time we met, I mentioned, hey, I used to be in these streets. I sold drugs. I got shot up. I got incarcerated. So, can we go out tomorrow? You know what I'm saying? So it's like, it's up to her, where it's like, you know what I'm saying? And for me, I was good. I was like, was that too much, or was it, but I wasn't checking for her, but I was honest, you know what I'm saying? I didn't want to go into previous relationships where, you don't tell the truth, right? Because they didn't ask, you don't tell, you understand? So I went into it just saying, look, here's what it is, balls in your court, make the decision, you know what I'm saying? And, here we are 3 years in our board marriage here, 3 kids later, with 2.5 kids later, you know what I'm saying? And it just works where we're consistently honest. Like I could tell, I was like, girl, you need some therapy. You feel me? Just because of this other relationship that was involved or whatever. I probably might need it too, but I was like, you look like you need a little bit more than me. You understand what I'm saying? But you know what I'm saying? When you cross that bridge, I'll support you. You know what I'm saying? And I know you'll get there. You know, we had set these vows, so I love you and whatnot, but I got your back, and you know, it's working. So,
and can I just give a little more context? So we met through a friend, and you know, we kind of were hanging out that night, got some drinks, ice cream and whatnot. And so he was dropping me off at my house and gives me his whole testimony. And he's showing me like, I got shot here,
my
I got shot here, and here,
arm,
and this, that.
Shot in my face and all this other type of stuff.
And, you know, he didn't tell y'all in the little blurb he gave for the introduction, but, you know, I went to law school. I'm a lawyer. I did a lot of criminal defense work. And I'm like, oh, Jesus.
Criminal dropping her to her house.
This is exactly what my mom was telling me about. Now this dude knows where I live. Like, what am I gonna do? And that's what's going through my head at like midnight on a school night. He had me out in these streets. And so one of the things that we both kind of prayed, like, if this isn't the person for us, God, go ahead and take him out of our lives. We both happened to pray that prayer, and well, here we are.
And that's the most crucial prayer too, right? So if you're dealing with somebody, like, ask God, if this is not the person who you have for me, just take them out, right?
And he works really fast. You'd be surprised, because I prayed that prayer with other people before, and they are nowhere to be seen. But you know, like I said, that was the very first day we met, and it set the stage for the fierce vulnerability in our relationship, because there's, you know, when someone gives you that whole story, there's no way to not give them back all of you. You know, there was no like putting on airs and presenting like the best version of yourself, and then by the time you're 3 months into it, now you're trying to figure out, well, how do I let them know I'm not really like this all the time? Like, let me take these lashes off, take my wig off, like all that stuff. You know, we came out. So I think that for anybody, for any relationship, being able to be that open and honest and willing to lose a person over being your authentic self.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think everyone on this call has met each other at different stages in life. Beck and I, we were very young when we got together. So when we got married, I was 25, she was 22. You know, kind of bring the whole therapy aspect into it. I wasn't even centered in myself, and I didn't really even know what to be transparent about because I just didn't know what was affecting me, you know. And then that's how therapy helped me to just basically center myself, figure out what's contributing to, you know, shortcomings in my character or in a personality, and how that's affecting our marriage. But then giving me the tools to be able to articulate to her, you know, what's going on with me, and you know, being able to talk through that. So.
Yeah, I relate to that a lot. It was pretty much the same thing in our relationship, and I think it got to a point eventually where I realized that she can't be that person that I put everything onto. And I think I realized the same thing with her. Like, I can't be that person that she puts everything onto. You know, we're partners and we share and we help each other grow, but I can't expect her to take on all of my SHIT without, like, and so I think that was the thing that really kind of pushed either of us into the direction of going to therapy. It's like, okay, you know what? You can't be that person for me where you take on every single one of my problems on top of your own. You know, because like you said, like, we're all changing, we're all growing. And part of that is realizing that, you know what, I can't do it all for everybody, you know, including my partner. So there had to be that other person that kind of helped us work through those issues that we were having, or problems that we may not have been able to communicate well together.
Yeah. And it got to a point where we eventually went to couples therapy at one point, because we had recognized that we couldn't really speak our truths without worrying that we were going to offend the other person or, you know, come across the wrong way. And we really we loved each other enough to like, you know, put that aside and say, we need some help outside of ourselves. We can't expect us to fix it, but we want to try. And that was the biggest thing for us, was just our willingness to try.
Yeah. Michelle said the word, right? The fiercely vulnerable, right? This is how we are fiercely vulnerable. And this is what we're here to talk about, being vulnerable in our relationships to our partners, being vulnerable in our relationship to self. I feel that people are watching and somebody out there is thinking to themselves, if I am too vulnerable, my partner will leave. If I open up too much and I show my true colors, my partner will leave. So my question to you is, does being vulnerable bring you closer together? And why? What has been your experience with that?
Well, I would just say the main thing is being vulnerable brings me closer to myself. And like several of us have said today, you know, it starts with you. It starts with me. It starts with myself. And so the more I'm willing to practice vulnerability with myself and being truthful with myself, I don't have to live in shame. And then thus I don't bring that into my relationship.
Sophia, can you talk a little bit about what it looks like to be vulnerable with yourself? What does that mean? What does it look like?
Well, so in terms of my marriage, what it looks like is being real with myself about what I want, what I don't want, what I'm willing to take on, what I'm not willing to take on. You know, as I've shared many times very openly, my husband has a traumatic brain injury. And I remember the moment where I actually made the choice to still be there with him, to honor my vows that we took. And I feel like we get an opportunity every single day in our relationships to make choices every day. So I like vulnerability for me is being clear that I have a choice, first of all, and then being real with myself about those choices and decisions I'm willing to make.
Can I ask a quick question to the panel, everybody? Like, how easy is it to make that choice where, you know, you get up in the morning? Is it automatic? Like, you know, is it automatic I have to take out the trash? Or is it automatic when she acts a fool, I know how to respond to it? You know what I'm saying? Not to say my wife acts a fool, you know what I'm saying?
He was pointing. I was like,
I mean, I know our kids do. So that's kind of automatic when poop all over the floor. Like, you got to clean it up. You know what I'm saying? But like, do you guys automatically switch into this is my choice all the time? Or do you kind of have to take a step back and be like, I don't know?
I know for me, in the beginning, this is my second time being married, and this is his second time. So for me, I had to learn how to make the choices, but be okay with the choices without that fear that he would leave if I didn't express myself or anything like that. Because in my first marriage, I'm that nurturer. So I'm always that pleaser. And so I wanted to make sure that I was doing everything right, trying to be the perfect wife and all of that, but never had my own voice, in a sense. Not that he suppressed it, I suppressed it. So I was always afraid, like, if I express myself, then the person's going to leave, or, you know, and this was like throughout relationships over time. So this time, as I'm learning to express, because he has no problem expressing, he's very blunt and open. So I think it's that northern thing, that Northwest thing or whatnot. So, you know, and I'm just like, did he say that to me? You know, and then I'm just like, wait a minute. And so he gave me permission. He's like, you can express yourself. But I was afraid to express myself because I was with the fear of maybe he's going to leave, or he's not going to like what I'm going to offend him or whatnot. But so that's what I'm learning. So for me, the choice, it wasn't like an automatic, like I woke up and say, okay, you know what, he didn't do this, I'm out. But at the same time, it was like, you know what, let me protect my heart, because if I say something and he chooses to leave, then I'll be ready to go X, Y, and Z. But that wasn't the case. So that was just for us as we're learning and so forth.
You've got some people definitely who Lee says, I never want to come across as needy, so I'm careful with how much vulnerability I share in the chat. And then we also had Melissa to say, I've got to figure out what's going on with me before I can figure out what's going on with us. Yeah, these are both very obviously people you all are sharing or connecting on both of these things. And I also want to say, just in general, if you are watching, please feel free to ask questions of these marvelous panelists as we are continuing to move with our conversation. Oh, look at that. What do you all do that communicates to the other that you are a safe place for the partner being vulnerable? What are some ways you created that place what are some ways that you've created that place for the other? Yeah, this is a great question. Thank you. Thank you, KJ.
I think for me is just shutting my mouth and listening and not trying to fix, not trying to come, because I am a strategist. I come up with a lot of solutions for a lot of people. But when it comes to somebody being vulnerable with their heart, it is so important for me, I feel, to just hold space and let them feel their feelings and be okay with that, even if it feels uncomfortable for you. Sometimes I cry with him and all the time I laugh with him, and of course that feels easier, but just being quiet.
Yeah, I still haven't learned to be quiet and listen, if I'm being honest.
It's a hard thing to do.
It is. It's very hard. It is.
It can really tell somebody that you're listening to them.
I saw this thing on Facebook, and this is something that we are starting to work on. So being in this pandemic, being in this space, like I said, a lot of things that you didn't think were issues have come full blown, in terms of who I am, who he is, like everything just comes to a head, right? So now we're at the point where we're not on that other side. We're at the point where we're at the beginning, like, okay, we have to find better ways to communicate. There is no, we have an argument. He goes to work outside. I go to work outside. We have 8 hours to calm down. And then when we come back, we're just like, hey, like, no, we're right here, So now we're at the point like, okay, there's some things I need to work on myself. There's some things that, you need to work on. And there's some things that we need to collectively work on. But I saw this thing on Facebook. It said something like when they have, it was a married couple, when they have, when someone's venting, the other person says, okay, do you want me to be a problem solver or do you want me to listen? And I was just like, oh, that's what we need to do. Because AJ, I know one thing about him. When I talk to him, he is in problem fix it mode. He wants a solution and he's like, well, what do you want me to do? We need to do. I'm just like, no, I don't need you to do anything. I just need, I'm venting right now. So I thought that was an awesome tool because that gives that person the okay, I don't have to solve it. I can just sit and listen, and I can do that without worrying about her not thinking I'm not solving it, and vice versa. So that is something that, a tool that we are trying to work on. We haven't mastered it yet, far from it, at the very beginning stages, by the way.
Thank you for that reminder, because we heard about that and I totally forgot about it.
Yeah, I forget.
Yeah, so thank you for that.
I think one of the things that I guess he does for me.
Yes. Go ahead.
is to make it clear that he's not going anywhere. And so, there are times, especially during this pandemic, like Shai said, when everybody's home and, there's nowhere for you to go. But sometimes he gets on my nerves and sometimes I get on his nerves. And we're able to say to each other, I do not want to talk to you right now. I don't want to deal with you right now. And we can go to our separate corners and know that we can come back and talk about whatever it is. Like, you did X and that annoyed me, or, you did Y and this was the problem. Or I'm just having a day. I don't know why I have an attitude. I do. And you don't need to be around it. And so sometimes it's just, the little things that give the person comfort, knowing that you'll still be there. So I know that if that's how we deal with each other when the issue is the other person, then if I'm vulnerable about something that's going on with my mom or something that's going on with my friend or whatever, that he will kind of hold that space, like Danielle said, for me.
And then too, I just want to say too, what AJ, I think Shay, had said was is a listen. So active listening is like a learned behavior. So it's like it's kind of hard to kind of pick up on saying like, I just need you to listen or problem solving, especially with you guys owning a business. Me too. If you're solving solutions, you're making money. You know what I'm saying? So you think if you're saving solutions, you could be saving somebody's feelings or what have you. And I know, like for her, like she said, creating that open space. And I think just being vulnerable and me just learning how to just take the L. I give you an example. One time she got frustrated and she was harboring the feelings, right? And I had no idea until she came in. She felt comfortable to tell me. But then after I realized it, I was like, oh man, that's my bad. I don't know if you know the situation, but I'm gonna go ahead and tell
I was gonna say, can I tell him?
You want to tell them? You know what it is?
No, you can.
You know what it is?
Yeah.
Tell them.
Okay. So I don't remember what I was complaining about,
Right.
but we're in the kitchen talking. I'm complaining. I'm having a real serious, like, emotional thing. And he just farts out of nowhere. And it was loud. And I was just like so mad because I was mid-sentence and it was serious and he's just gonna fart. And so I barely spoke to him like 2 words for like the rest of the evening. It was the next morning. I was like, look, it really pissed me off when you did that.
I'm still mad at you. I'm like, what? Like, what?
Because it felt to me like disrespectful in the moment that, I'm having this big emotional thing and you just gonna pass gas, like just right there. And so once I told him, he was
I mean, if it helps, I think I was making tea to like deal with all of that. You feel me? But once I told him, he, apologized. And of course it has not happened again, thankfully. But it was just a thing where my reaction might have been a bit overblown, but he still needed to know how I felt. And I had the space to be able to do that, even if it wasn't until the next day. And then for me, like I could have made the decision. That's why I kind of asked that question with the choose to love or whatever. Cause like I could have made the choice to be like I just farted. Like I fart around you all the time. Like it's not that serious, you know what I mean? So I could have been like, we just get over it, you know what I mean? But like it really offended her. So I was like, all right, I know now not to fart. So what aggressively when you're having serious conversations, and suffer myself to hold it in until I finish making my tea or until you finish saying whatever's on your mind.
Go be one with yourself, Colin, is what she was saying.
Right.
One with yourself.
So this is a really good space to transition into this question, because Melissa asks, what about when your relationship is safe and healthy and comfortable, so comfortable that you forget about intimacy? And I think that question stands on itself. What happens when your relationship is safe, healthy, and comfortable? It's so comfortable that you forget about intimacy. How do you overcome, or how do you navigate those waters?
I think for us, when intimacy drops off, the other stuff starts to drop off. So I think that we start to notice like, oh, we're not communicating well. Oh, we're getting frustrated. And it's like, oh, intimacy just hasn't been a goal here. So we try to kind of align ourselves.
It's like, what is he
That's a
gonna say?
weird answer. I wish I hadn't unmuted.
No, it's not a weird answer.
Realign.
I like that one. That's a good answer. Like realign top to bottom or side to side.
We're gonna keep that one in mind.
But I think that's a really good question, because like for us, we have a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old, and it just seems like it's always something, you know, somebody's clothes full of piss, this one is hungry. And then the crazy part about it is my children love daddy so much, is that when we try to show intimacy, like the other one is throwing the tantrum, the other one is trying to squeeze in between us. So it's like, dang, I can't even, you know, enjoy my wife without the kids going crazy. And by the time, like when we get a moment, it's like we tired, we just need a rest, but we're both on the same page. And I think one thing that we do a good job on is like, you know, the I love yous, and they even sing the touches or whatever to make up for the, you know, just aligning one another from time to time. We could use, you know what I'm saying? It's kind of hard, but just doing the small touches, you know what I'm saying? And then noticing that, okay, well, let's try to parcel off some time to like cut off and just go call in the babysitter and just get some time.
Or also just like saying something a little rude, like making an inappropriate joke from something that probably shouldn't be inappropriate, but just to remind your partner, like, hey, I liked you first. I picked you. Right. I'm still picking you. I just, I can't today because I'm sleepy. So.
Yeah, I was going to say, just I think you just have to prioritize it. You know, I think for Beck and I mean, the thing that attracted me the most to her was like, we can talk for hours on end about anything. And so, you know, sometimes just to get that back, you know, I'll run her a bath on purpose just so I can sit in the bathroom and talk to her, you know, and just, you know, have a conversation. So, yeah, I think it's just important just to make sure that, you know, you prioritize time for one another, and, you know, it could be conversations, dinner, you know, sex. Make sure you prioritize it.
Text messages.
Yeah, text messages.
Even though we're at home together, we can still text each other sweet notes from different rooms.
Yeah.
Yes. I would also say, get intimate with yourself. Get intimate with yourself. Yes, Candace. So, you know, when I saw intimacy kind of taking a dip, usually it was because one of us was tired and probably working too much. But also, I think it's an invitation for me to check in with myself too and see, how am I doing? How am I doing with my intimacy with myself first and foremost? Because I feel like, you know, the more I'm intimate with myself, the better it is for him. The kids are asleep, right? I could add more.
That is so true. That's something that I've been learning. I had to relearn this time around, because the first time I'm like, the intimacy, I didn't have a problem with it. You know, I'm Miss Betty Boop or whatever, but didn't realize that I had gone through so many changes in this marriage that it affected the intimacy part, and not just the sex part, but like the entire intimacy connection, because I was still dealing with the grieving or the changes of marriage. Like the changes, I don't think people, I didn't realize that it's like, okay, I got married. That's a big change. That was a happy change. Then boom, 3 weeks later, there was, you know, the grieving part. So I was dealing, as my therapist was saying, that I was dealing with two emotions, and I didn't know how to do that. So everything was lost, you know, intimacy. I was like, I don't feel like doing nothing, or, you know, just, I would keep myself up. That was not a problem, but just knowing who I was again, like being, like you said, being intimate with yourself. That's something I had to relearn within these last, these last 3-4 years now. So that is something very essential, especially for me, that I've learned that you have to start with yourself so that it can flow over to him, to my partner.
So much sweeter. And I'm not just talking about like sexual intimacy with yourself. I mean, being with myself, reading by myself, thinking about like, what do I really like? You know, because I'm going on 13 years of marriage, and sometimes it's easy to forget. Like, wait, what was I doing before you showed up? And what do I like, and what makes me happy, and what brings me joy? So that it does become sweeter when I'm with him. It's like icing on the cake.
You have to take a break for yourself, just like we have to take a break in this program. So it's a break for all of you. So we are going to take a break, friends and family. We are so happy that you are just joining us. The questions are amazing, so keep them coming. If you have more, please put them in the chat. For now, we are going to take a little break so our panelists can do what they need to do to refresh. You can do what you need to do to refresh, but please be sure to come back in just a few moments when we are back with Sophia Casey and this Fierce Vulnerability Summit. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you soon. Hello, 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 and welcome back to Fierce Vulnerability with Sophia Casey. I am not Sophia Casey. I am your host, Shannon Dale Stott, and I am very excited to bring all of our panelists back. Please welcome back Danielle and Cole, Sade and AJ, Trinette, and Chef Brett and Rebecca. Welcome back, Colin. Welcome back, Candace. Welcome back, Sophia. Yes. Oh my goodness. So glad to have you all back here. Yay. So we're talking lots and lots about vulnerability in different ways. But before we get right back into our discussion, Sophia, would you like to read for us, please?
Actually, no, I'm not going to read again.
Oh.
One thing that's inevitable. Shift happens.
Shift happens, and I love it. So
no, I want to save all this time for this discussion. I really do.
Yes, well, it is a good one. So I totally very much understand. I would love to get into this. I want to know, starting this idea or continuing this idea about vulnerability and really intimacy. Intimacy, if you can tell me if the other person's hopes and dreams, all right, so aspirations, how does your partner's aspirations differ? How do your aspirations as an individual differ from your aspirations as a partner? How do you balance that? How does your partner's aspirations, if you know, as an individual differ from their aspirations as a partner? What do you think their aspirations are? And how do you balance that? Ooh. Like, I'm literally watching Cole and Danielle like, It's like the best facial expressions ever. So do you know your partner's aspirations? That's question number one. Do you know what are they?
I think for us, we're a family entrepreneur. So, and I'm a full-time teacher, but still an entrepreneur as well. And with him, he's a full-time entrepreneur. So I knew going into the marriage what that looked like. However, sometimes I found myself more passionate about his dreams and his aspirations. And I tend to thrust my passion on him. And I'm like, you got to do this, and then I'm a planner. So I will put down, I find myself doing it all, planning my dreams and goals, planning his, and then getting frustrated when they don't go right or he doesn't follow them. And, and I have to step back from that and say, you know what, Trinette, it's okay. This is his path. This is, I have to find other ways to be supportive and let him know that he knows I'm very supportive, but sometimes I think I'm over supportive, just because I have that passion for him, especially being a chef, I'm like constantly thinking of ideas and things for him to do, but not realizing that he is still his own person. And I still need to, I won't say stay in my lane, but just really just be in that lane of being a supportive wife for his dreams and aspirations and whatnot. And just making sure that he's on that, that path, but without being the mama, playing that motherly role or, just teacher role, because, sometimes I can be like, I could go into teacher mode and like thinking he's one of my students or whatnot. So I have to constantly remind myself that I am his wife and I need to be his partner and be supportive in that sense.
I wonder if all of you have been in a partnership or are in a partnership where you don't agree with what your partner's aspiration. Becca looked right at Brett. Wow. You don't agree with what your partner's aspiration is. How do you support? How do you handle that? How do you move through that?
A lot of conversation. She looked at me and she said, "How we protest." Beck is very front line, so she's a therapist, so she works with individuals on a one-to-one basis. But yeah, she's front and center. She will march, with everyone. I tend to be a little bit more behind the scenes. So I'm developing, whether it's developing an application or it's mentoring individuals. That's the way that I've chosen to make a difference and make change and protest. But I think ultimately we have the same goal in mind. We're just going about it slightly differently. And I think it just really takes, that communication and making sure that you're keeping that common goal at the forefront.
Yeah. And Brett, what is that common goal? When you're talking about common goal, what are you talking about?
Well, when it comes to private, we want to make change in our, whether it's, at the community level, state level, national level. We're both striving to inspire others, to help, to get involved. And, but, again, Beck is, she's in the streets. She's in the streets. And
he's like, nope, I don't want to do that. And I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, I'll see you in 10 hours.
And again, that's a difference in our personality. I'm very introverted. I don't like large crowds really. And Beck draws her energy from being with the people. And so I've chosen more of a, intimate route, working with people on an individual basis, and building out the app that I've been working on. We've been protesting and yeah. But I think again, we've been trying to just work within our communities, inspire the change that we want to see in the country, and we've just chosen to go about it different ways, but it's a common goal. So.
I want to shift gears just a little bit. Sophia, you were going to talk a little bit about the physical change in your husband and how that has affected your marriage. We also have Cole and Danielle, who had physical change in their relationship and how that has affected their marriage. And then Shai and AJ also have had physical change that has affected their marriage. And if you all are comfortable, I would love to just hear those stories and glean some lessons from what you've had to endure, and then also what you have to share as far as lessons and advice for others that are watching.
Well, I'll start. I mean, I'm still in the journey, I'm still like smack dab in the journey. And, as I ride this grief wave, I never know when it's going to hit me. I don't know how it's going to show up. And, when I talk about the fact that I'm grieving, people are like, wait, what? He ain't dead. He's still here. But I'm going through a grief period of grieving him as I knew him. Okay, so the man that I married, although there are many parts of him that are still the same, there are parts of him that are not the same. And so just allowing myself some grace, and also allowing grace for him and compassion for him too. And sometimes I get frustrated, like sometimes he can't remember a certain word because he has a lot of memory gaps. But I think to myself, like, wow, I imagine he could be frustrated too, that he can't remember the word as well. So just really giving myself grace and getting supported. That's the thing. You're going through physical things, get supported. I cannot imagine just going through this journey, without having a relationship with God first and foremost, without having a relationship with faith, and without having people to support me, because there are many, many, many days I felt like, who am I? And that's another thing. It's like your role changes. Like, who am I with a husband who has a TBI? Who is he? And just navigating all of that. The biggest part for me has, I think the thing that has saved us is that we got supported like right away, and we still get supported and still need even more support. So I'm starting to relate to support as like that's part of our new normal. And it's been one of the most challenging things. I was about to say the most challenging was probably the passing of my mom, but definitely one of the most challenging times in my life. And having to rebuild my businesses and just figure it all out, and not having somebody there to be to, what the B stands for, to complain and just share all of that. it's really been a stretch outside of our comfort zones. And I'm saying our, because it's not just a stretch outside of my comfort zone. It's a huge stretch outside of his too. Like, you know, who am I as a man now? Who am I as a husband now? Who am I as a father now? So I tell you, marriage is one of the best boot camps for life. I really do believe that. Yeah, it's been a great boot camp, and it's been a kick my boot camp also. Yeah, and I'm still in it. Still in it.
I can really relate to that. I think finding community was so important for us. We were able to find a nonprofit that's local here that supported not just the transgender individual, but their partner, their spouse, and their family members. And I had questions, I had anger. I was also grieving, you know, our past relationship, you know, and also a part of myself. And so there was just so much that was chipping away that I needed somebody to kind of go through that with. And for us, I always like to say that Cole coming into himself was the antidepressant, like medication, right? That you wish you had, the happy pill, right? Like Cole just continued to become more confident. He continued to smile more. And it's so nice. It's just a great smile. And it just came out of his shell and is always the first to jump in, whereas previously he was hiding, you know, really hiding within himself and not trying to be seen. And he's still introverted and I'm still extroverted, trying to volunteer him for all the things, but but we work that out. And it's a constant learning, and I'm so grateful for it.
Yeah, and I think the biggest physical change for us was more in perception from others than it was the relationship between us. Being seen as a heterosexual couple is something that I have no experience with. It's not a community that I'm a part of. I still don't consider myself to be a heterosexual male. I'm queer. You know, I'm part of that community. But that physical change for me, I felt like I was I was abandoning almost a part of who I was, you know, and losing that community. So I think that finding that community was probably what helped us through the physical changes the most. Honestly.
We'll still see people like repping a rainbow flag, and we'll be like, "Hi, us too, us too." But it's, you know, it's kind of fun though, and it's I love how Cole can represent masculinity in a way that has like the memory of that. How would you explain that?
It's masculinity without the fear of femininity.
I would say also another big part of like navigating the physical, you know, when physical changes happen, medical things happen, is being relentless about protecting your marriage and protecting your family. And what I mean by that is making sure that you as a family unit, you as a marriage, you as a couple define what normal is for you. And I mean, I've experienced so many opinions and comments, like when people call me a single mom. I'm actually not a single mom. Don't have anything against single moms. Shout out to the single moms. My mom was a single mom. Yeah. Hey, Candace. But not letting people define me as that, because when they were defining me as a single mom, they're discounting him as if he does not exist, you know, and making decisions for our family and having medical professionals just discount and not even think to ask him. Like, no, we need to include him in this family decision. So I just think it's really important to be clear about what you allow in your marital space.
Oh, okay. So we're talking about grieving. So normally when people talk about grieving, there's always the misconception is that you lost something that is no longer there, like someone that's no longer here on this earth, right? But grieving has so many different levels. So I always say that, you know, I'm still grieving my old self, because with this this autoimmune disease, everything has changed. You know, there's just things that I have to do differently now. There's, you know, certain restrictions that I have. It's just it's a different you. And I think, well, one of the things that, and I'll let AJ speak from his perspective, but so it's just, when you're going through this, right, you know, I had this mindset, this is happening to me, you know, and granted, AJ was here, you know, whether he was taking me to the doctor's office or we were going to the emergency room and things like that, he was physically there. But I think I had started to discount his presence because, again, I thought I'm like, it's happening to me. Like, it's not happening to you, it's happening to me. But there's another perspective, because he also has to, you know, adjust to different things. And like I said, when this whole diagnosis started, we were trying to figure out things that were going on. My frustration of not knowing what was going on with me feeling that something was going on with my body, but didn't know what, taking it out on him, just being frustrated. And then the thing about when you're in a relationship, when we have things going on internally, sometimes our partner can interpret it as something that they're doing. And because we're unable to vocalize what's really going on with us, we can't say, hey, no, it's not you, I'm going through this. But I couldn't vocalize that because I didn't know what was going on. So we had to just deal with, you know, it's not you, it's me type of thing. We had to still dealing with, you know, the things that I'm thinking of. And for example, when you get diagnosed with a disease, anxiety comes, you're always thinking worst case scenario. And there's plenty of times where, like, I would just feel like, okay, what if, you know, I'm only going to live a certain amount of time, or things like that. And these are the things that are going around in my head. And they're normal thoughts. But I also was in a space where I knew that I couldn't share it with AJ, because his thing is, don't say that. We don't speak that into existence, you know, and he's coming from a good place. So then I had to kind of resort to, like, I'm internalizing all of my thoughts. And because I'm not vocalizing them, then that frustration and that irritation and all of that shows up in our conversations. That shows up in our intimacy level. I mean, it just shows up all over the place. So just learning how to learning who I am with this new me, learning what that looks like as his partner, what that looks like as a woman. And yeah, I'm sure he's had to make adjustments as well.
I just want to add to that, and we spoke on, you know, a shift in the relationship. And I know, you know, in 2019 when Sade got diagnosed with lupus, it definitely was a shift in our relationship, but it wasn't a bad shift. You know, some people might think a shift is kind of bad, but shifts can be good, you know, in certain relationships too. But I felt like this journey, you know, with her having this lupus, God gave her the strength to, you know, fight through those challenges. And you know, the Lord is not done. The Lord is not done with her. You know, as you see, she's inspiring, you know, I watch her, she inspiring other women that's dealing with the same autoimmune disease. And, you know, Sophia was able to, you know, have a major impact in her life as well. So, you know, I feel like it's definitely made our relationship stronger because I'm there as emotional support. So, and of course, we have both our families are there as well, and very strong, you know, very supportive in what she's going through. So,
we just had to figure out what all of that looked like, you know, and how do you navigate through, you know, the moments when you're down, the moments when, you know, because I'm sure there was times where he was having a bad emotional day, but he had to set that aside because, you know, I was, you know, either physically in the hospital or something like that, you know? So it's like there's frustration building on his part because it's like, and not trying to speak for you, but I know there has to be a point where it's just like, I want to have frustration or I want to be upset, but I can't right now because her issues, you know, are at the forefront right now. So, you know, that's the other side of the person dealing with, whether it's an illness diagnosis or something like that. Your partner, even though they haven't been diagnosed with it, they are absolutely going through the same thing. So I have to keep that in my mind as well. You know, when I get into the nobody understands me, nobody knows what I'm going through, I have to still remind myself, you know, AJ, you know, he feels it. He sees it. He feels it. And, you know, I have to give him more credit for that.
As we are talking about the things that we are holding up our partners for, how we are holding up our partners, the word commitment really bubbles up for me. You're committed to your partner, you're committed to your relationship. And I wonder, that word commitment, how does it show up for you? And I'd like Candace to chime in on this because it's not just about committing to another person, it's about committing to your children, it's about committing to yourself. And how does commitment show up for you, Candace? And then how does commitment show up for all of us?
I think for me, the way that commitment shows up is me really looking at, you know, what I want things to look like and me being intentional about my actions, you know, on an everyday basis, you know, and then at the end of the day, why did I give my attention to whoever and whatever I gave my attention to? How did those things affect my attitude? And how do those things work in regard to what it is that I want for myself, for my children, you know, for us in our life going forward? So, you know, just being intentional, that is, you know, what commitment is, you know, for me.
I heard this phrase. I don't know where I heard it from, but it was, if you're not uncomfortable, you're not growing. So I'm committed to forcing myself, you know, to try new things all the time and doing it with her, you know. So yeah, that's how I'm committed. You know, doing things like therapy to help me figure out what's going on, and helping me to navigate my issues, and then, you know, bringing that growth into our relationship. I don't know if you had anything. No.
So commitment for me is just continuing to show up, whatever that looks like. When we did our premarital counseling, I remember our pastor saying that we were making a commitment to each other, but we were making a covenant with God. So, you know, it's more than just walking away or, you know, whatever it is that we need to do. If we have an argument or, you know, if we're not seeing eye to eye, at the end of the day, commitment is to keep coming back, to keep showing up, and continue to working to get better. But you can't work on things if you don't show up. You have to be present in a relationship.
I think Candace summed it up for me. I've learned to be committed. Well, first I have to be committed to myself first before I can be committed totally to my partner, to my husband, and being committed to God on this journey, because I have to learn to trust God to trust me with my husband. And what that means is like allowing me to be the woman that I'm supposed to be and the wife that I'm supposed to be, but also being committed to to me as that person so that I can show up and show out for him, you know, whom God created for, you know, I know he created him for me. So I have to, as Candace said, you have to, for me, I had to learn to commit to me first. And that meant staying prayerful, praying for my husband, praying, you know, stay prayed up for our household, you know, just being there in that sense, and just kind of reversing that role that I was so used to being before, you know, being that independent woman, didn't need, you know, a man, or I could do it all by myself. And God is like, okay, I blessed you with this husband. I need you to act right and do right. So I had to really recommit my journey back to God and ask him to say, okay, show me what I'm supposed to do on this time around, so that I can be committed the right way, you know, and without the frustration or the guilt or whatnot. Show me how to be committed. So I had to I'm starting with me first, then it flows over.
Commitment to me means meeting Cole or myself with compassion. You know, how can I anchor myself in compassion? When Cole came out to me as trans, I regret the way I reacted. I still, to this day, can I share?
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh, so you telling me you want to be a boy? Like, I really just got an attitude about it. And I regret it. Like, I feel bad about, you know, I had to process in my way, of course. But that really just showed me how I don't want to be. And I want to actually meet anybody I come into with compassion. And that's including myself, because I can get very judgmental of myself.
Yeah. And I think commitment for me is really just checking myself. You know, if I'm having a rough day and I'm taking it out, you know, taking a moment and saying, okay, listen, this is not about her. This is about you and your day. And then owning up to it, not just walking away and saying, oh, she knows it wasn't about her, but actually saying, hey, this wasn't about you and I'm sorry. And that's commitment for me. It's just owning up to my stuff and making sure that I apologize when I get out of line.
So I think commitment for me is consistency. I know, like, every 22 months she's pregnant. You know what I mean? So that's the easy things. That's the easy things. The hard things too, just being committed, like being consistent with saying I love you, and consistent with holding my gas when she's having an important conversation, so she doesn't feel like I'm being rude. You know what I'm saying? Just I think the small things that we build up to being consistent.
And then to echo off what Shay said, just that making that choice every day, you know, you have to choose to love the person. You have to choose to be there. You have to choose to be present. You have to choose to be consistent. And, you know, you have to choose to show up for yourself too. But being sure that you do that in your relationship as well. So, I guess that goes off your consistency too.
I think part of commitment for me is when things aren't going great, is kind of calling time out, stepping away, seeing the big picture, and just saying, you know, the truth is it's a bad day. It's not a bad marriage. And we just need to put it in perspective. And it's okay to have bad days, but that does not define the last 20 years. And not getting stuck on those bad days.
I'm wondering this like, I love that idea of like not getting stuck on those bad days. No one knows what the bad day is going to look like, right? You don't know how it's going to show up or how bad it's going to be. And knowing what you know now, for all of you, knowing what you know now, what advice would you have given yourself to prepare you for worse, like for better or for worse? If you could go back and meet however it was, like your younger self before you got married, and give that self advice to prepare you for the worse, what would it have been?
For me, I would say to not have a image of what that looks like. Because when you do, you're setting your expectations either low or high, and we just don't know what that looks like. So I always thought, when I get married, for worse would probably look like, I don't know. And this is obviously before I met AJ, but in my mind, I was just like, oh, I'll go through problems like probably like infidelity. That was my thing, because that's the thing, right? But just don't have an image of what that looks like, because you don't know what that looks like. And if you set your expectations too low or too high, you are going to set yourself up for a rude awakening. Yeah.
I think for me, it was, I agree with you, Shai. You never expect, the worst. In my first marriage, I experienced infidelity. So, I'm like, okay, I know many other people who've gone through that. You can fix it or you choose not to. In my case, I chose to divorce. And then boom, I get married and had you don't expect it. And that was the worst. And it's like, okay, who am I? What do I do? You just don't expect it. Like, you said, and I remember telling my therapist, I said, I don't know what to do. That was like the first time in my life that I was like honest, like totally honest, because usually I can fix things. I can, solve the problem. I can, say, okay, well, today I'll just, suck it up or whatever. But this time in my life, I literally didn't know what to do. So that opened up a whole lot for me and for my husband and whatnot. But it is, you don't expect it. You don't know what to do. But I think, now I could share with people, just you can prepare yourself and you just go with the flow. You just know that this too shall pass. And that's what I would tell myself, even still tell myself, this too shall pass. And I just tell other people, this too shall pass. This is not the end. It just looks devastating and feels devastating right now, but it's not the end. So if I could go back and, give that advice to myself, I would just definitely tell myself, like, hey, this will pass. It's just a little stump in the road, but you'll be okay.
Yeah, I had a very similar response. It would just be to go back and say, not all bad moments last forever. Just breathe through it and know that tomorrow is a new day with new challenges or excitement. So just take it as it comes.
Yeah. And for me, I would say to myself, check in with how you can come into the situation with love. How can you meet yourself with love? How can you grow yourself as a person, become more independent, and the relationship will just follow suit.
I would just keep leaning on what I said earlier, and that is to be honest with yourself. Honest with yourself, and know that with roses come thorns too. And really be honest in what you say, what you share, what you feel. I can't underscore enough. I really do believe that saved me through this whole ordeal, almost 4 years of an ordeal. It's just being honest and checking in with myself, before I checked in with him and before I checked in with others, but just checking in with myself and really, searching my heart. And I would also say, I would tell my pre-married self, continue to lean on the foundational stuff, the stuff that is never changing, the solid rock. Like, what are those solid rocks for you? And for me, it's been my faith. And it's also being like knowing myself. I think that is just, it's critical. It's critical for navigating those unexpected changes that surely come?
I would say one of the expressions that I've always liked is, if you're going through hell, keep going. So, and it kind of echoes off of what Trinette said, and some other folks have said. You have to do your best to hold out hope for a brighter tomorrow. And, sometimes that tomorrow doesn't come for some years, or that tomorrow looks different than you anticipated it might look. But, you really just got to keep moving. So that would be my advice to my pre-married self.
Ditto.
Yeah, I think piggybacking on what Shai said, just Beck and I came from, so both of our parents have been married, I don't know, 40 years? Yeah, so, we had pretty stable, examples, I guess, of marriages. So, I think when we first got married, it was, we kind of looked to our parents as the model. But, I think what I would tell our younger selves, is figure out what works for you. Recognize that, you're not your parents. You're not your parents, and you're two individuals coming into a relationship, and you need to figure out like what works for your unit. And some things that your parents did might work, but also recognize that not everything your parents did was correct, and being okay with that. I think that's also part of growth, right? Is you need to recognize where there are some things that you were taught that are not conducive for your relationship with your partner. So,
Candace, anything you would tell your younger self?
Oh, goodness. Well, one thing I would definitely tell my younger self is that patterns don't lie, people do. And being real about that and seeing things for what they actually are and not for what you want them to be across the board, and addressing things when they come up and not just thinking that they will work themselves out, because people can't change what they don't know how to change. And if they don't learn how to do anything different, they will always do what they've always done.
Friends, we are about to wrap up. But we're not going to yet. Not yet. So before we do, what I'd like to hear from all of you is, and when I say all of you, I mean all of you on screen, and definitely all of you in the chat. I want to know what you're taking away from tonight, specifically from what did you learn from another group, like another couple or another person today? And if you're watching, then what did you learn? Who did you learn it from? What is the thing that you're really that's going to stick in your mind? Let's wrap up with that. What are you taking away from tonight? Who did you learn it from?
I think what I learned from Cole and Danielle is that we need to align tonight. So we'll be doing that.
I couldn't hear you. What did you say, Colin?
He's rude. He was saying that
we're going to align.
Oh, align.
Yes.
Oh, alignment. Yes. Align.
Alignment.
Alignment.
Yes.
Alignment.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Alignment.
Yes.
I think I like it in sign language better. Alignment. Thank you.
One thing that stuck out to me is that everybody on this panel is very resilient. I could see that in everyone's story, and every story was different. And that's very encouraging. And it's nice to see that everyone goes through it. Everything ebbs and flows, but at the end of the day, the resiliency here is really high.
I want to say first, Candace, are you a therapist? And if you are you taking new clients? Because I need you in my life. Every time you were talking, I was just like, can I call her? I've learned that, again, being in this pandemic, being in our own little bubble, you kind of forget what the outside world looks like. And it feels really good to sit with couples and you hear, their stories and you're just like, okay, like this is what relationships is. Like this, hearing the ups, the downs, the irritation stories, you feel it's just like, okay, I'm not going crazy. This is normal. And we need that. We need to surround ourselves with, couples, just so you can kind of get that, okay, and it puts a lot of things in perspective. So that's what I've learned from this panel. And like Becca said, just so many different stories. Everyone has been through just a lot. And it's not often that we just get this space just to have this conversation. It's either, a panel where it's like this perfect couple, with this perfect marriage, or it's the opposite where, it's just all bad. This is just where it is what it is. It's just real. And people can relate to that because that's what people go through. So that's what I took away, and that's what I appreciate.
Yeah, I think what I took away from all of the conversations, I mean, everybody, all of the couples on here has had different experiences, either together or even from a personal standpoint. And you always, as a couple, it's always going to be rough patches that you go through, but it's going to help you grow, and it's always going to be a good side. So it's work. It's marriage is work. This relationships work. So you gotta find a way to support each other and listen. I heard a lot of talk. Yeah, we talked about communication,
therapy.
Yeah, communicate therapy. Mm-hmm. You should have therapy not only for your marriage but individually, because you can't. If you don't have it individually, it's going to hurt. It can hurt the marriage too, because you bringing those problems into your marriage. So.
And I love what Miss Sophia said, with roses come thorns. I don't know if that's a saying or that's something that you came up with. It is. Oh, okay. Because listen, I was about to say, see, I don't take credit for that. No. But yes, that resonated with me because that sums up everything.
For me, it just to piggyback on it just being surrounded by I call it the non-Instagram marriages, because in today's society, you will feel like you're like, oh my goodness, like we are going through like hell and high water, and you try so hard, we're adults, but sometimes, people do make it look so easy. And for me this time, it's like I had to learn how to put down the pressure, and say, okay, I'm not perfect, Trinette. This is not going to be perfect. We're going to have some arguments. I like to call them intense moments of fellowship, that will lead us into alignments, So, it's good just to be surrounded by people, real people, as I say, real couples who have gone through situations, especially with the whole pandemic, because that I didn't think I met anybody else who was like, I started asking around, like, did y'all have issues? And when people started talking, they were like, and then you're like, okay, it wasn't just us. So it's just it's just an honor to be surrounded by authentic couples. Even though Chef left, he has ADHD, y'all forgive me, he can't sit down for so long, so he has to walk around. But even with him, it was for him to sit and actually take part of it, it was like, oh wow, okay, so you are gonna live. Oh, okay, cool. So thank you again, Sophia, for just having this platform, just so that we all could breathe, because it was a breather for me.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And I was thinking the exact same thing. I was like, it's just refreshing to see after the past year or so of really only interacting with people online to all of a sudden it's like thinking like, I'm going through it, you're going through it, nobody else going through it. What's going on here? So it was just very refreshing and comforting, I guess, and also endearing in a way to hear everyone's stories and hear everyone just see how they interact and know that relationships take different forms and all forms.
Right. Oh my gosh, there's so much I'm taking away, and it like, I love how you said, Trinez, it's a breather. It's been hard to be vulnerable with even your close loved ones during the pandemic because you feel like, I want to be so grateful for what I have, and I'm healthy, and I should do this, and you just shoulding yourself all over the place. And to be here with all of you, I'm like, who's throwing the barbecue? Can we all just get together?
Yeah, like the after party.
We can come on down to Charlotte.
We got a backyard. Come on,
we got it.
I'll fire up that grill.
But maybe we need Chef Love.
Yeah, yeah. I'm vegetarian, so I can't cook. We don't cook any meat, but
we got the vegetarian stuff.
I'm right there with you. I'm a vegan too, so let's get the barbecue together. Let's get together.
Yes, and intention was really sticking out to me. I think Candace was talking about intention and commitment, and I just want to show up intentional AF whenever I can because it's so important. You can choose how you want to show up in the world, and when you start with intention, you know you're going to lead yourself in the right direction.
Yeah.
To give a serious response to the question, two things that stuck out for me in the conversation, even though we all talked about communication a lot and being vulnerable with each other, was something Cole and Danielle said about your spouse can't necessarily be the person to take on all your stuff. And so I like that. I think a lot of us, if not all of us on here, have gone to therapy or currently go to therapy. And that was a nice reminder because, you know, with previous generations, that's like not the thing to do. And so, especially because May is Mental Health Month, it's nice to see that it's being normalized, at least in this conversation. And then the second thing was from Candace talking about growth. And it's something I knew, but it's nice to like hear it, that, you know, in a relationship, you're going to grow. You're either going to grow together or you're going to grow apart, but either way, you're going to grow. And so just to think about that and be mindful of that so that if you want to stay in your relationship, y'all figure out a way to grow together.
We had someone in the chat say, Camry says, I learned to express yourself, how you're feeling, from Trinette. I tend to be a pleaser, so I try not to say anything, but I'm a work in progress. I'm learning to communicate in a healthy way. So yes, well done. Well done. We are wrapping up. Sophia.
So what I got from actually all of you is, and it may sound cliche, but love wins. Love wins, whether that's love for your partner, love for your spouse, love for yourself. Love wins. I'm holding on to that forever.
Yeah.
Forever.
Friends and family, those of you who are joining us out there in the chat, thank you so very much. These discussions are for us, obviously, but they are for you. We are here to celebrate this wonderful journey that Sophia Casey is on. Thank you very much, Sophia, for bringing all of these wonderful people together. Thank you, Danielle and Cole. Thank you, Sade and AJ. Thank you, Trinette and Chef, wherever you are. Thank you, Brett and Rebecca. Thank you, Colin and Michelle, and thank you, Candace, for being here this evening. This has been amazing. If you haven't seen them, there's been a lot of scrolling behind the scenes. Yinka Freeman is making sure that all of our panelists are shouted out. If you're looking for where they are, you can look in the chat and find them on Instagram, find them on their websites, all of those things. It has been inspiring and so grounding. Really, this has been a grounding time. It's been grounding to witness and be a part of this discussion. Thank you to Sophia Casey once more. Congratulations, Sophia, for all the things that you are doing and for bringing awareness to what it means and how we can be fiercely vulnerable within our partnerships and within ourselves. Friends, thank you for joining us and supporting this book and our community. Good night.